There's a specific moment I want you to picture. You're standing at a marine dealership somewhere along the Florida coast. The salesman just walked you through a brand new 22-foot center console. Beautiful gel coat. Triple Garmin touchscreens glowing at the helm. A Yamaha F200 hanging off the transom. Sticker price, $78,000. What nobody mentioned during that sea trial is that the fiberglass hull under your feet is thinner than the same model built in 2014. Those three gorgeous touchscreens have a 7 to 10 year lifespan before they turn into $4,000 paperweights. And the outboard motor? If it throws a fault code at the boat ramp on a Saturday morning in June, your local mechanic cannot touch it. Only the authorized dealer. $160 an hour, 3 to 4 week wait. Middle of summer. I spent an honestly embarrassing number of hours this month crawling through marine surveyor reports, laminate spec sheets, and about 200 forum threads on the hull truth. I went in expecting a mild case for buying used. What I found made me angry. The construction data, the wiring architecture, the diagnostic restrictions, the dealer economics. All of it points to one conclusion. The smartest boat purchase in America right now is sitting in some guy's driveway on a galvanized trailer with a handwritten "for sale" sign and a Yamaha F150 with 800 honest hours on it. And the boating industry really does not want you to figure that out. How does a newer, more expensive boat end up being the worst product? It starts inside the hull layup, where you'll never see the difference unless someone cuts the fiberglass open. Between roughly 2015 and 2020, the majority of mid-tier manufacturers migrated from hand-laid fiberglass to vacuum resin infusion. Hand-laid hulls typically run about 40% glass fiber to 60% resin by weight. Infusion reverses that to 60-40, producing hulls that weigh 20 to 30% less. Manufacturers market this as progress. Lighter means faster and more fuel efficient. What they leave out is the failure mode. One small vacuum bag leak sucks air into the laminate. Uneven resin flow leaves patches of dry fabric buried inside the hull where nobody will ever see them during a sea trial. I found a professional fiberglass worker on a sailing forum who reported cutting into infused hulls from a well-known European builder and finding over 20% of the roving strands bone dry. The manufacturer's response was, genuinely, that it was quite normal. Marine surveyor David Pascoe, who performed over 5,000 hull inspections across his career, put it as bluntly as anyone could. He said the cost of materials kept going up while the market demanded cheaper boats, so the only option left was reducing how much fiberglass went into each one. I personally think hull construction is the single most overlooked part of this entire debate. Everyone argues about outboard brands and electronics packages online. Almost nobody talks about the actual fiberglass standing between them and the ocean. But here's the detail that everyone missed. The worst era for build quality was 2020 through 2022. COVID demand sent production to roughly 20,000 boats per month, 13% above normal. Resin prices spiked 44%. Experienced workers left. Forum threads from that era read like warning labels. One poster described a brand new mid-tier boat at a major show with uneven hatch edges, a half-painted bilge, and T-top hardware already corroding on the showroom floor. A 2014 center console was built with stable supplies, experienced labor, and normal schedules. A 2021 of the same brand was built in a supply chain crisis by whoever showed up. Same name on the hull, very different boat underneath. Now pay attention to this next part, because the modern boat helm is a financial trap that catches people completely off guard. Step onto a 2014 center console and look at the dashboard. Round analog gauges. Tack, speedo, fuel, voltmeter, oil pressure, water temp. A complete Faria bead 6-gauge set runs 350 to 460. If your fuel gauge dies, you lose your fuel gauge. Everything else keeps working. Each one sits on its own wire and costs $40 to $80 to replace. Step onto a 2024 version from the same brand. Those gauges are gone. Everything routes through touchscreen displays. A single Garmin GPS MAP8612 cost $4,000. The 16-inch version is $6,000, and these screens do fail. One owner on the Hull Truth had dual Garmin 7610 units both go dark within 3 years from digitizer to lamination. Garmin quoted $950 each for out-of-warranty repair. Raymarine straight up discontinued repairs on their A-series and told owners to buy new units. A company redirecting you from service to sales for a 3-year-old product, and somehow it gets worse. Newer boats increasingly use digital switching, where your physical toggle switches get replaced by software buttons on the chart plotter. One owner wrote that his brand new boat has no switch panel at all. If that chart plotter dies, he cannot activate bilge pumps or navigation lights from the helm. On a 2014 boat, a blown fuse takes 30 seconds. On a digitally switched 2024 boat, a network lockup cascades across multiple systems at once. I mean, picture that for a second. Your bilge pump, controlled by a touchscreen, bouncing around in salt spray and direct Florida sunlight. This is where the conversation stops being about features and starts being about whether you can even service what you own. February 2017 is the line in the sand. Yamaha introduced full digital electronic control for the F15, O, and F175, their most popular recreational outboards. Before that date, any independent marine mechanic with hand tools and a $75 diagnostic cable could fully service a Yamaha F150. After that date, Yamaha restricted their YDIS 2.0 software to authorized dealers only. One owner who bought new 2017 engines wrote that he specifically asked for the diagnostic tool and was told it was dealer only. His words, "Anything to make you go to the rip-off dealer." Mercury went further. Their G3 diagnostic software requires shops to re-register online with Mercury every 30 days. Missed that window? Locked out. That is not a glitch. That is the business model. And no, I am not exaggerating. Dealer labor runs $120 to $180 an hour. Independents charge $60 to $100. Annual service on a Yamaha F15. Costs $80 to $150 in parts for DIY. Through a dealer, that same job runs $500 to $950. And during peak season, dealer wait times stretch 3 to 4 weeks. Your outboard throws a code on Memorial Day weekend, and you might not see your boat again until the 4th of July. A pre-2017 F15. Oh, with mechanical controls. Your local guy fixes it with wrenches. Not a software subscription. Everything I just walked you through, the hull specs, the helm failures, the diagnostic lockouts, I compiled all of it, plus a lot more into something called the bilge files. 6 guides. Pre-purchase inspection checklist, outboard blacklist, hull quality rankings, dealer playbook, DIY fix Bible, electronic survival guide. $19.99 for the whole vault. Links in the description. Alright, so here's where the financial case gets undeniable. New boats lose 10 to 20% the moment you take delivery. By year 5, you're down 20 to 30%. By year 10, 30 to 40%. Then the curve basically flatlines. After the 10-year mark, annual depreciation drops to 5 to 8%. That's your window. Real numbers. A Robalo R222 cost about $55,000 rigged new in 2015. Today it lists for $30,000 to $40,000. The 2025 equivalent runs $75,000 to over $100,000. A Sea Hunt BX 22BR that was $45,000 new goes for $25,000 to $35,000 today. Current sticker is $65,000 to $90,000. Even Grady white, which holds value better than almost anything afloat, shows it. A 2014 251 Coastal Explorer runs $69,000 to $100,000, used versus $130,000 to $175,000 new. Total cost of ownership across the life of the loan, even with the higher interest rate on used financing, works out to roughly $40,000 to $50,000 in the used buyer's favor. That buys a complete repower, a full electronics upgrade, and years of fuel and maintenance with cash left over. The timing right now is almost unreasonably good. The COVID boat bubble has fully popped. New powerboat sales fell nearly 10% through mid-2025. Used inventory more than doubled. Boats priced at pandemic levels are sitting for months with 0 offers. This is the best window for 10-year-old boats since before 2020. Quick warnings for this age range, though. Aluminum fuel tanks tend to fail around 16 years, sooner in Florida. Replacement means cutting the deck, $3,000 to $8,000. Everything rubber and plastic on a 10-year-old boat needs replacing. Fuel hoses, scuppers, through hulls, pump housings. Budget for it. And critically, low hours on an old engine is a red flag, not a selling point. A boat with 50 hours over 12 years sat with stale fuel and neglected maintenance. I will take 500 documented hours with a thick service binder over a low-hour garage queen every single time. Models the forum veterans keep recommending include Contender, Regulator, and CV for premium used center consoles. Cobia, Cape Horn, Robalo, and Sailfish for mid-tier. And Pathfinder, an 2200 TRS, Sportsman 227, and Blue Wave Pure Bay for bay boats. The dealership never presents these older models as options because they generate zero dealer revenue. Margins on new boats run 20 to 30%. Warranty work generates over half of service department income. Brunswick Corporation, the biggest marine company on Earth, owns Mercury engines, Boston Whaler, Sea Ray, Lowrance, Simrad, and Freedom Boat Club. They profit at every stage of new boat ownership, from hull to engine to chartplotter to replacement parts. A thriving used market is the one thing that threatens all of it. The experienced boater buying a 2014 Sportsman or Cape Horn off a private seller isn't settling for less. They're getting the same fiberglass, the same water, the same fish, just without $40,000 in depreciation, a touchscreen running their bilge pump, and a software subscription standing between them and their own engine. The real question was never whether you can afford a new boat. It's whether a new boat can afford to be honest about what's actually inside it. Subscribe if you want more like this. I'll see you in the next one.